Good morning to everyone, and thank you very much, Bernd, for this kind bridge to our session on clean energy transition. Congratulations for the successful climate session. And yes, we will take you now along with us into the session on clean energy transition. A very warm welcome from our side to this session. And so we do hope that many of you joined us already yesterday, a day of rich information, but also probably likely this morning. And this session will offer you an introduction to the Clean Energy Transition Program. Probably many of you know that our call will be published on the 11th of May. So we are basically in the last days before the publication. But of course, today we are very happy to be with you and give you already a first insight into the policy background, an insight into the funding opportunities, but also mention a few project examples so that you can picture which type of funding opportunities will be presented to you under this Clean Energy Transition Program. Now, we have with you a range of colleagues in order to make the information really direct and then hopefully very interesting for you. So we will have with us Pierluca Merola. He is joining us from DG Energy. So the DG, which is in charge of the policy priorities for of course, the whole set on energy policy priorities, and notably very busy lately on the recast of very decisive pieces of legislation. He joins us from the Energy Efficiency Unit, which is in charge, amongst, of course, many policy files, but in charge of exactly the LIFE Clean Energy Transition Program. And so we're very happy to have Pierluca with us today. We have with us Maria Laguna, my colleague, head of sector in the Clean Energy Transition team, who is in charge of the work with consumers, products, industry, and the built environment. We have also with us Zoe Wildiers, our senior advisor, who is also in charge of many files, but probably important for you that she's actually managing and coordinating this very call. So a key person. And myself, my name is Annette Jan. I'm the head of sector for the work with the cities and regions for smart buildings and mobilizing investment into sustainable energy. And so this is the team which is accompanying you today and hopefully very available for you to give rich information, but also to be available for questions to you. So with this short introduction, I would suggest that we start immediately, and which means that I would be very pleased to give the floor to Pierluca, who will illustrate to us the latest policy updates from a very busy policy agenda in the energy policy. Thank you very much, Pierluca. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Annette, and thank you very much for both to the organization and to the participant to have joined today to have more information on the Clean Energy Transition Call 2023, and in general from my side on the key policy priority that then the sub-program LIFE set and LIFE program in general and the different call topics will try to contribute to, and not try, will contribute to certainly, and will help us to deliver on the clean energy transition toward our 2050 decarbonization objectives. So if we can start, I wanted to present you, I will not go over, maybe I can ask for the next slide already. I will not present again myself because, as mentioned already by Annette, I follow specifically the LifeSet sub-program in DG Ener, and I'm part of the Energy Efficiency Unit more specifically. So I will not recall the overall European Green Deal. You know that very well. What is important is just to mention that at the beginning of this Commission, the clear priority, the overreaching priority for the Commission von der Leyen was indeed to launch the European Green Deal and to have a key objective. We have heard from our colleague across the different other sub-programs from DG Environment, from DG Climate, so you are very well aware of this development. What is important from us, because of what I will present later, is that we came out with the Fit for 55 legislative revision, in the sense once the strategy of the European Green Deal has been published, and the European climate law setting the high level, the binding objective of reducing the 55% greenhouse gas emission by 2030 has been approved also by the member state and by the Parliament. we had revised the sectoral legislation, and when we speak about the clean energy transition, we speak primarily about the Renewable Energy Directive, the Energy Efficiency Directive, and the Energy Performance of Building Directive. What I mentioned here also a key component to our sub-program, where we focus specifically on action at local, citizen, or urban level, is as well the renovation wave, because we know very well, you see it from the small snapshot of the climate target plan, so the impact assessment underpinning the European climate law and the new target, that there is a strong effort to be achieved in the residential sector. So it was important also to recall from the outset the renovation wave communication and the focus the Commission and DG ENER and LifeSet and CINEA in the implementation of the program put on the renovation wave and the renovation of buildings. If we can move to the next slide. I will then the other key priority, in the sense that if the European Green Deal was well in the mindset of our political leadership when they took over and they kick off this mandate of the Commission, an unexpected development was represented by the unjustified aggression from Russia to Ukraine and the consequent energy crisis that developed from that. From the Commission side, we have come forward with a clear plan to phase out dependence on Russian fossil fuel by 2027. This is the REPowerEU plan. It has been complemented by a legislative revision brought from the side of energy security, but also, most importantly, in the framework of Life Clean Energy Transition, from the side of accelerating the clean energy transition in achieving larger impact in terms of saving energy and reduce demand. The plan is detailed in terms of how we will clearly substitute the Russian imports, the import from Russia in terms of natural gas. When we look at our sub-program more specifically, it's clear that we intervene when we address the wide energy saving, but also the deployment of on-site or local renewables, for instance, when it's come to rooftop solar, and most recently, in terms of decarbonizing the heating supply, both at the individual level with the heat pumps deployment in households, but also at district level when we address the modernization of district heating. Importantly, with regard to REPowerEU, compared to the 55 legislative revision put forward by the Commission, there has been an amendment. In particular, we have proposed the increase of the target for renewable energy and for energy efficiency in the Renewable Energy Directive, Energy Efficiency Directive. We can move to the next slide. When it comes to the Energy Efficiency Directive, we have now both the renewable energy and the Energy Efficiency Directive are now at a very good advanced stage in terms of the interinstitutional process, in the sense that there has been an agreement, a political agreement between after the trilogues between the co-legislator, between the Parliament and the member state in the Council. And now the process is being finalized, mainly with regard to the translation procedures, and then the votes, the formal votes will take place in the next months. What has been agreed, this is communicated also through the press, is that we have agreed to the co-legislator agreed to an energy efficiency target to raise it to 11.7%. This compared to the consumption, the 2020 average consumption. This is a very important, the fact that we revised the target in order to make it more understandable of what we speak about when we speak about increasing energy efficiency. So this is compared to the current consumption in 2020, an 11% improvement, 11.7% improvement is expected by 2030, and this at the EU level. Then we have strengthened the national energy saving obligation to a one with an average obligation of 1.49% of annual savings that member states are expected to deliver on an average basis, because there's a stepwise approach. It grows from 0.8 till 1.9, but in average between now and 2030, this is 1.49. Then we have introduced the energy efficiency first principle, reinforced it because it was already introduced, but reinforced its application across key sectors. You might very well know what this principle is about. We ask to consider energy efficiency potential before key policy planning and investment decision. Also here under the sub-program, there has been clear focus in this regard, and there will continue to be in the next years. With regard to the district heating and cooling sector, the Energy Efficiency Directive provides the definition of efficient district heating and cooling. This has been updated in the current revision, and a trajectory is provided from now till 2050. So a different milestone. There is a different expectation of phase out. Also, for instance, specifically with regard to fossil fuel cogeneration, given technology and the introduction of more renewables and more waste heat toward 2050. Then we have updated the provision with regard to energy audit, the energy management system, in particular with regard to the thresholds that are the one that you see in the slide for the obligation to have an energy audit or the obligation to have an energy management system in place. And finally, other key provision of the directive regard the exemplary role of the public sector, where an annual reduction of 1.9 obligation to annually reduce energy consumption, but 1.9% is expected to be achieved. Finally, more specifically and related to a bit across sector, the provision on financing to deploy innovative financing for energy efficiency, and also to foster consumer participation and protect vulnerable consumer. Regarding the Renewable Energy Directive, the key element is, of course, also here. In terms of there has been a political agreement that is similar to the situation with the EED, in the sense that now the process is ongoing to finalize the linguistic checks, and the formal vote will take place in the next month. The target has been increased to from the current 32%. So this is the current target before the European Green Deal, to 42.5%. So it's a strong increase. This is expected so that the 42.5% of energy mix come from renewables by 2030. There is also an indicative additional target that can trigger, but in particular there is also a target for innovative technologies. So we also continue to foster the development of renewable technologies. Then most relevantly, we have a target by key sectors. Some of them are binding, some of them are indicative, but these address the heating and cooling sector, transport, which with a strong binding target, industry in particular for the use of renewable hydrogen in industry, and of course renewable use in buildings. What is also important in the Renewable Energy Directive is that, as you know, this was complemented by an additional legislative act focusing specifically on enabling permitting for the deployment of renewable energy sources. The two concepts that have been introduced here is the concept of overriding public interest of renewable deployment, and the identification by member state or regional authorities of go-to areas to focus the deployment of solar or wind or other type of technologies. Then what is also important, because we strongly address this in our sub-program, is the support to renewable energy community and the deployment of renewable energy in building. Another important element also from a cross-sectoral perspective in the LIFE program with regard to sustainability and biodiversity, the definition of sustainable bioenergy has been updated and reinforced, in particular to take into account the EU biodiversity strategy and ensure that biomasses are not sources from protected area or relevant, in general, relevant biodiversity area or carbon stock areas. Finally, also here there is a strong focus on the renewable energy source integration in district heating next to waste heat. If we can move to the next slide. The third key clean energy legislation that is present, that we had, which implementation and objective we address in the clean energy transition subprogram specifically, is the energy performance of building directive. As you know, this is as you probably know, this is the key directive setting up the objective for the building stock and for the building sector. The overall, as said, the overall background to this is that there is a huge effort that we have to achieve when it comes to building, and that we need to reduce to step up the contribution from the sector to the climate neutrality objective. What is proposed in the directive is has been proposed because in this case the legal text has been published in December 2021. So the interinstitutional negotiation are still ongoing, and in particular the trilogue between the co-legislator is up to start in the next weeks or months, in the next week generally. So key reform here is the introduction of the minimum energy performance standards at the Euro level. So minimum standards in terms of energy performance class that all building must respect, give with a stepwise approach. So at a given timeline from now to 2027 to 2030, of course. Of course, this is particularly relevant when it comes. I mean, the timeline is much debated in the current negotiation, so it is not clear when if it will be 2027, 2030, 2033. Then most importantly, we revised the framework for the energy performance certificate to ensure cross-country comparability and to reinforce their quality and to reinforce overall the trust of the citizen in this very important tool. On the decarbonization side, this is more on the renovation side. On the decarbonization side, what is provided is the update of the current definition of nearly zero energy building as the golden standard for building, with a zero emission building, which will be the definition of the building that is expected in 2050 to be the norm across the EU. Other element, very relevant to cross for the interlinkages with the sustainable mobility, is the right to deployment of vehicles and connection infrastructure. I will not go into the detail because I would like, if we can go to the next slide before handing over to the next to Maria, I suppose, to the next speaker. I would like to recall also the other, let's say, key initiative, because they're all very relevant in the framework of our program. We have said that we're speaking about the clean energy legislation, but there is important legislation for which the DGENER is in charge, and that is now being revised following, in particular, the energy crisis in terms of high energy prices after the Russian aggression to Ukraine, is the revision of the electricity market design. This is ongoing. The debate is quite ongoing, but this will be also taken into account in terms. This is coming in the framework of energy policy development, and also with regard to the digitalization of energy system and what the digitalization can offer to the clean energy transition. The DGENER has come forward with the digitalization of the energy system action plan. These also have very important linkages with the subprogram, where we have where we aim also supporting smart energy services and smart buildings in particular. So the integration of the building with the energy system on a smart and making use of digital technologies. And finally, let me just mention the older development that has been recently with regard to Net Zero Industry Act, and identification of the key net zero technologies that are needed toward 2050, in particular in the framework of our interest: heat pumps deployment, solar solar technologies, but also smart and energy integrating technologies such as smart metering and better monitoring of energy consumption. Finally, all the activity that we are, of course, following with regard to sustainable finance and the corporate responsibility directive and all the sustainable reporting requirement in this regard, how these align with the need to mobilize more investment for energy efficiency and renewables. And with that, I close here and I hand over back to Annette. Thank you very much, and I remain available in case of any questions.
Thank you very much, Pierluca. I know it's an immense challenge to present the busy agenda of the policy updates in such a short time. So really, thank you so much for having done a very condensed helicopter flight on those. And you will be kindly available for questions in case participants have some later on. So we will move on the program, and we would please need the slides for the Clean Energy Transition Program. If the colleagues could kindly put those, then we'll take you through that journey. So looking at the next slide, we'll see a small picture which shows you basically a short geographical mapping, if you wish, for those of you who haven't come across the structure of the LIFE program, just to quickly show you. And I hope that the colleagues will be able to move the slides over to the next slide. Yes, thank you. Here, basically just a small memory picture, if you want to take this away, where the LIFE Clean Energy Transition is basically hosted. So basically as one sub-program under LIFE, next to the colleagues working on nature biodiversity, on circular economy, on climate change mitigation adaptation, and basically, if you wish, as the newest addition to LIFE, because basically our program has been taken forward from a previous programming under, for those of you who know us, of the Horizon Energy Efficiency Funding. And basically since 2 years, we've been hosted under the umbrella of LIFE and basically pursuing our mission, which is explained on the next slide. The Clean Energy Transition Program really being the program to facilitate the transition towards energy efficient, a renewable-based, climate neutral and resilient economy, and zooming in a more concrete fashion. So basically the Clean Energy Transition Program is the key program for policy implementation. So basically all of the challenges, the target setting, but also the provisions which will have fundamental impacts on accelerating the pathway towards carbon neutrality that Pierluca has just outlined with the latest update of the legislation. This is basically the funding opportunities that LIFE Clean Energy Transition offers to you in your work, in your constituencies, in your grounds. And in this sense, it has quite a history, but basically continuing the pathway on breaking market barriers and having an envelope, just to have deposited this number as well, an envelope of about €1 billion over the whole programming period from 21 to 27. Probably more helpful to be translated into how can we be helpful on the basis of the call for proposals that we are actually publishing annually, so once a year. And here we have a budget of envelope of about €100 million available, and which translates in more or less 55 to 70 grants per year. And that gives you a bit of a picture of the opportunities that this program offers. If we move to the next slide. So here, basically, we see a kind of a condensed picture on the main mission of the program. In what ways can it be helpful to the work that you're undertaking? So as I said, LIFE-SET is the program which tries in the energy market to break market barriers and change really fundamentally the way that market and regulation works. It does give funding to improve governance and capacities and skills at all levels, and also notably relating to one of the final points that Pierluca was mentioning, basically contributing to the agenda on sustainable finance, so basically creating demand for investment, mobilizing investment into sustainable energy, and improve access, and here notably, to private finance. So in a nutshell, and that is basically in mirror to the picture that you're seeing on the right of this slide, basically listing the dense policy ambitions that the EU, together with their member states, so basically your governments, your own governments, probably locally, from where you're working from, have subscribed. Basically, the program tries to support innovative approaches to really support directly the uptake and the implementation of European legislation, of European targets and initiatives, but with real impact on the ground. And this is where it meets you again, because we do know that many of you coming from the different parts of Europe have subscribed to the same targets, and probably pioneering already targets which are beyond those target setting. And here the program is here to help you moving forward and getting your pathway in a better way, in a deeper way, but also embracing European collaboration. On the next slide, we see how that translates into concrete project landscapes. Just the picture, if you want the photography of earlier this month, we have about nearly 300 projects which are ongoing, which basically we are managing with our clean energy transition team and trying to have a collaborative relationship in order to really capitalize on what the projects are actually driving forward, having them meet, getting their updates, getting also their results into the policy shaping. And no surprise when you see here the key sectors that the projects are working on, they of course do reflect very immediately the European policy, key policy priorities, but which also match the urgent needs which you probably are facing every day on the ground. So quite a lot of work you see here on decarbonization of buildings. You can see here illustrated our citizen-centric work for consumers and communities. You can see the whole work around cities and regions. And on the left side of the chart, the whole work on mobilizing investment and making sure that private finance flows better into sustainable energy, and the whole also framed with dedicated work that we call policy support in direct support for the key legislation. And on that, I would pass over to my colleague Maria, who will take you to the next stretch, and we'll basically share this presentation in order to give you a flavor of the program. Maria, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Annette. Yes, so as Annette was saying, LIFE is a main policy-driven program, and that's why, apart from the projects that Annette was, the slide with the projects overview that Annette was presenting before, we also have some other type of initiatives, more strategic initiatives. Here you have some examples on the slide. I will not go in detail of all of them because we'll not have the time to explain each of these initiatives, but basically they are complementing the work that is ongoing with the projects. For example, the concerted actions on the different renewables, on the different energy related directive, the renewables, the buildings, or the energy efficiency directive that help member states to set up forums to discuss how to best implement and cooperate in the implementation of the different provisions. Or we have some tenders, key tenders, strategic policy tenders, like, for example, the Building Stock Observatory that has been launched recently and gathering data, the main portal for building data across Europe, or the Build Up portal, also working with the reference as a reference portal of renewables and buildings and energy efficiency in buildings, as asked by Article 20 of the EPBD. Or, for example, for those of you working at a local and regional level, you might be very well aware of the Managed Energy Initiative as delivering deep capacity building activities for more than 50 local and regional agencies across Europe. So basically, apart from the projects that we are having, that we are managing, we are complementing the projects with this more key strategic initiatives at the same time. Next slide, please. As Annette was mentioning as well, so we have the LIFE multi-annual work program, and here LIFE set is described with the main objectives and the main mission, and also there is a description of the main intervention areas. There are 5 intervention areas described in the multi-annual work program for 21-24. I will not go in detail describing the intervention areas. What is important is to mention is those intervention areas are stable, so are the same ones for 21 for 24. And from there, the call for proposals are stemming from. So basically, every year we launch an annual call for proposals, and all the topics are related to those intervention areas. For 2023, it's not yet published. We'll publish on the 11th of May, but the idea will be to have a call with 13 funding topics with around 100 million euro, which will mean around 60 projects that could be funded under this call. And at the same time, we will also complement with other strategic policy initiatives with such as tenders. Next slide, please. So I mentioned that we have the 13 call topics, so not yet published, but we'll give you an overview on what is expected under these 13 call topics. So we are clustering them in different areas of work. And the first area of work is citizens in the clean energy transition. So basically here we hear from Pierluca that the European Green Deal wants to ensure that the energy transition is fair and just. And that's why we are keep supporting with the Clean Energy Transitions program the main agenda on mitigating energy poverty and vulnerability, and also the supporting the more active role of citizens in the energy transition through, for example, energy communities. There will be a topic on energy poverty, basically looking into the elements of the recast of the EED, as Pierluca explained. So the EED is putting more emphasis to supporting vulnerable households. And the idea with this call 23 topic will be that we offer support to build concrete skills and capacity for vulnerable households to afford their energy bills, but also to support relevant actors like local authorities in designing and implementing strategies and frameworks to mitigate energy poverty. We will continue the support with another topic on energy communities, but in this case, it will be a very special topic. Basically, the idea will be to launch a project that will set up a energy communities facility. So mirroring or learning from the success of the European City facility that is currently running. So basically, the idea will be to set up a facility that runs and delivers cascade funding, small grants for third parties. So it's a very novel instrument, and the idea is to support the early phases of emerging communities, which often struggle to develop their community because of this the problems of the barriers at the early phases of project development. So, and they need support from the technical and the financial point of view to set up their business plan. And there's where these small grants, easy access grants, can help with a key pre-development work. So the idea will be to set up a project that will set up this community facility to facilitate the cascade funding. In the other area of work, the carbonization of buildings and heating and cooling, the idea will be to launch 3 topics. The first one on the energy performance of buildings. It's the idea will be that the focus will be threefold. On the one hand, facilitating a deep renovation, for example, by stimulating the volume and the demand of industrialized renovation solutions and approaches. But also, for example, by helping the rollout of tools and instruments like the building renovation passports, and thirdly, also improve and facilitate a deep renovation by improving the coordination of all actors that need to be coordinated at the supply chain level. And of course, all this topic, it's very much aligned and mirroring what is there for the recast of the EPBD directive. Then we have also looking into the heating and cooling sector. We have 2 topics. On the one hand, on heat pumps, we hear from Pierluca that heat pumps is one of the key technologies put forward by the European Commission and REPowerEU reach to get the 2030 targets in terms of climate and energy. And that's why there will be a specific topic on heat pumps, looking into how to facilitate the large-scale rollout of quality heat pump installations with new business models, looking into, for example, heat as a services or joint procurement actions or pay for performance, different type of schemes, but also looking to the need of skills and what is the gaps in the skills market to be able to deliver with the big targets on heat pumps that the European Union is putting forward. And we also have a topic on district heating. We also hear from Pierluca that there are new provisions on the district heating efficiency, definition of efficient district heating in the EED. And the idea here will be also to have a topic that helps district heating operators to, with the technical support, to develop investment plans to be able to retrofit the district heating facilities and fulfill the criteria of efficiency district heating and cooling defined in the revised EED. So looking at low temperature district heating, including, of course, waste heat. And that's for this area of work. Then the third in the slide here, in the third column, we have also the work on skills and industry. Here we'll keep on we will open a topic that will keep on supporting the skills agenda. So since 2011 we have the Build Up Skills Initiative, supporting the upskilling and reskilling of professionals in Europe working in the building sector. The idea is to increase eventually the skills of building professionals at all levels, from the design to the operation to the maintenance. So at all levels also of the building value chain. And here the idea will be to keep supporting the skill agenda with the topic to aims at development testing and validating of the new schemes or upgrade existing schemes and qualifications for all professionals in the value chain. So from blue-collar workers to white-collar professionals, but also other professionals, for example, professionals that need to do inspections or building audit, building audits, energy audits, as required by the EPBD. And finally, we also have a topic, of course, we hear as well that industry businesses are also key in delivering the key energy transition. And we'll have a topic on supporting businesses in the energy transition with a twofold approach. On the one hand, addressing the elements of recast of the EED on energy audits. We hear about Pierluca that there are new thresholds for the obligations on energy audits and energy management systems in the new EED, and also the idea will be to improve the ecosystems of energy audits in terms of quality and in terms of the new provisions. For example, there is the requirement of an action plan for measures that the businesses need to put forward. And on the other hand, also an area of work for businesses looking in how collaborations, energy collaborations between companies working in proximity. So for example, in industrial parks could help developing new business models and support the decarbonization of the businesses and the industry, but also looking into collaboration at the value chain level where large companies and smaller companies can collaborate from the energy point of view and develop new business models at the value chain level. And with this, I pass the floor to Annette, that she will explain all the call topics. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Maria. So we move on the next slide, which shows the second set, if you want, of the Call 23 funding topics. So starting from the left-hand side, looking at the first pillar on building a national, regional and local policy framework supporting the clean energy transition. The plan will be that we will have 3 topics open this year. The first one, cities and regions, will basically continue the very stable, robust and needed work on technical assistance, basically, for local and regional authorities in order to equip them with the necessary skills, necessary capacity, but also with the necessary organizational structure in order to deliver and implement climate and energy plans for the horizon of 2030, but also already to pave the way for the 2050 carbon neutrality. Now, much of this work, of course, and very, very understandably so and very organically so, is in support of the Covenant of Mayors. So in terms of planning efforts, most of the work which is undertaken here is actually somehow organized under a certain framing. It's not which exists in Europe, notably the Covenant of Mayors. And in order to really have strategic possibilities for cities and regions to work from within, but also beyond their administration, and really have the resources to convene all of their constituencies in order to have very concrete plans which can be implemented in good time. Now, the second topic is more centered around directly the main pieces of legislation. So here, as already very basically speakingly built within the title, effective implementation of key legislation in the field of sustainable energy. We've heard a very direct presentation this morning from Preluca on these key legislation. So the Energy Efficiency Directive, the Renewable Directive, and the Performance of Building Directive. And here, basically, this is work, analytical work, structural work, but also technical assistance to member states in order to have a very forward-looking work helping an effective, fast, high quality implementation of these pieces of legislation. Now, a very short reference to the third topic, which is called maximizing the use and valorizing the EPREL database. So here, this is basically a very specialized work, if you want, hoping to attract work to support the new European project registry, which has been running now, and it starts to be very well populated. And for those who are aware of this, you know that consumers can find very detailed information about energy label products, and which is a value of its own. Having said this, with a live program, it is thought that we can actually complement this with work supporting the data which is now available in terms of either providing external quality checks of the data on the performance of the products which are included in the registry, but also finding new innovative ways of putting the data to good use and actually valorize them in other usages. So as you see, a fairly specialized work for those actors who work in this area, but very interesting because it really accompanies a new registry, which starts to be very successful. Now, if we look at the second pillar, so basically moving into the middle of the slide, facilitating investment projects at local and regional level, here we are looking at two funding priorities, which basically unfold, however, into quite dense work in different segments. The first, which is called One-Stop Shops, Integrated Services for Building and Businesses. That funding topic will host all of the work that we are undertaking in order to stimulate, to encourage the development of so-called one-stop shop services across Europe. Now, these one-stop shops, they offer basically a unique opportunity to remove market barriers by setting up services which in one place, as the name so nicely says, offers really a full experience of integrated services. And notably, we've started this work notably on the very challenging segment of home renovation, and which has been running now for a few years very successfully, and supporting really emerging concepts across Europe of how basically central places, either run by cities and regions, but also by private operators, can offer a long-lasting, deeply rooted organization entity, which becomes the one door to enter for homeowners in order to undertake what they would probably experience as a fairly complex and ambitious renovation project. Now we are expanding that concept into other challenging segments this year. So basically we're looking at condominiums, we're looking at large rental units, but also at small businesses, which are all characterized by similar challenges of having multiple actors, multiple decision makers. And in order to organize and structure these services, we're offering this opportunity in an enlarged way. Ideally, of course, with a link to financial institution in order to also encourage that dedicated financial products are being developed in support and basically really in collaboration with those one-stop shop entities in order to have also here dedicated, tailor-made and long-lasting relationships being created. The second funding opportunity here is our project development assistance facility. This is really one of the driving forces for supporting the mobilizing demand, mobilizing concrete investment into sustainable energy. This is a facility, and for those who know this area of work, just maybe as a reference point, this is a facility which operates in complementarity to what is probably a bigger sister, the sister initiative, which is called ELENA, and that many of you know, and which is managed by the colleagues of the European Investment Bank. Our facility basically targets the smaller and mid-sized type of investment pipeline. So we are working nicely in synergy here. The essence is that we are helping public and private project promoters to really build and launch concrete large investment pipelines into the main segments of sustainable energy. So this could be public buildings, it could be private housing, it could be other public infrastructure, such as importantly, and here the link to the colleagues working on heating and cooling networks, basically to renovate heating and cooling networks up to the latest standards, but also on communities or industry or urban mobility or building integrated or other small scale renewable energy generation. I'm just going to drop here a small specificity. One of the essential features of this facility is a so-called leverage factor. So basically, as it is really public funding handed over in order to encourage large-scale investment, we would also want to see actually the step towards the concrete investment at the end of the action. And so these activities are actually linked to a certain leverage factor. And I can say just as a small side observation that all of the PDA, so-called PDA projects that we've supported so far, so in the range of about 50 initiatives, the absolute mass majority has very successfully succeeded in really levering the investment, and that despite that they have all high ambition and energy savings, they all have courageously piloted organizational innovation in how to bundle and aggregate the different elements of their pipelines. And so basically it's a very, very successful facility, and which has created very, very interesting new proofs of concept across Europe. The last pillar for now, attracting private finance on sustainable energy on the right-hand side. So here we're looking at one topic, really blending and merging all our efforts on mainstreaming energy efficiency into the financial industry. So we are looking to work with financial institutions in order to develop financial products which are adapted, or that they actually adapt their own investment practices in order to actually have a greater offer for energy efficiency investment. And on the other side, to actually have the concrete launch of innovative financing schemes growing in Europe. And here, innovative financing schemes, just to drop a few examples to make it more concrete, for example, energy performance contracting and or variants of that, or newer concepts like on-bill finance, on-tax financing, or building-based financing, or many other innovative solutions, and with the aim of having a scheme operational and tested at the end of the action. So this is basically the fast track, if you want, on our funding opportunities. We have a snapshot still on project examples, which we will do in a fast track in order to not take away the time for the question and answer session. If we go quickly to the next slide, please. And I will just cite the examples so that in case you wanted to find them back, because these examples are really role models, probably representing a lot of the features of how clean energy transition funding can work at its best. But of course, we have 300 ongoing projects, and which all have a big variety for you in case you wanted to see them in the live database, which is publicly available. Quickly here, the example on decarbonizing urban heating and cooling, 7 pilot cities in Europe, which have set out already fairly early, even before the phasing out plans of REPower, basically even before the terrible crisis which Europe is facing with the war in Ukraine. They have already started to phase out fossil fuels from residential heating by 2050, and really bringing for the first time cities together which have spatial planned transition plans in order to have a concrete phasing out of each single one of their boilers being still gas fueled, phasing this out either by 2040 or 2050. It's a very successful project, has had already a high attention, has a lot of learnings which are available for many other cities, and in that sense certainly not only a role model in terms of the strategic setting, but also a role model in terms of the collaboration opportunities and feedback to other peers in cities, which is certainly exemplary. Going to the next slide, I just make a snapshot of the next example so that you would find it back and being able to position it, what this opportunity could be about. This is basically one of our examples of our one-stop shop funding for a homeowner building renovation. Here it is a one-stop shop, the first one in Bulgaria to be set up to actually have a market-based approach for the renovation of a difficult segment, which is multifamily buildings in Sofia. And so basically here, the role model standing out that if this project, what is now in the final phase, has succeeded in setting up a new entity offering the whole customer journey for condominiums in Sofia, but also on top of that, trying to go away from the fully grant-based financing of renovation into a market-based financing. And on top of that, has also had structural positive effects by having the actors looking at the existing legal framework in order, for example, the Condominium Management Act, which is one of the main barriers in order to actually have agreement on renovations to be undertaken in your home, which of course concerns many homeowners at the same time, and having actually simplification in the Condominium Management Acts, which would basically count for the whole of Bulgaria, and where, of course, there's a catalytic effect, which is very positive. Moving over to Maria for the challenge of presenting one or two projects in a quick snapshot so that we still have time for questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Annette. I think we have little time, so I will not go in details. Basically, here you have an example of a project support on two projects, Label 2020 and BELT, supporting the RES scale in the smooth introduction of the RES scales energy labels. So 2021, the energy labels for products needed to be RES scale. And these projects help by targeting consumers, manufacturers, procurement practitioners, and in particular retailers to help in the introduction and a smooth introduction of these new energy labels. Next slide, please. And here you have a project working on energy poverty, basically a set of consumer organizations, a strong consortium with consumer organizations managed to set up long-lasting schemes to provide advice to energy poor households. It was quite important in the COVID period with local energy support offices and online training modules and home energy audits. And basically what's interesting, it's the setting of the advice that was done through the Consumer Association, which has easy access to consumers and have the trust, and also through intermediaries, organizations like social actors. So I will not say more because we have little time, and we can go to the next slide. And basically just a recall for all of you that we gave a very fast overview of the call topics because the call topics are still not published, but they will be published on the 11th of May with a deadline of 16th of November. So more or less 100 million available, more or less 60 projects to be expected. Important to recall, LifeSet, it's a very policy-driven program as presented by Pierluca and Annette, and the funding topics will, when the call is published, you will have a very detailed guidance on what is expected in each of the 13 topics. For most of the topics, but not for all, there is some eligibility requirements in terms of the number of partners, so eligible entities, and from which country they have to be. So you have to look this look at the call document in detail. And what is different from other type of projects in life is the LifeSet action. This type of grants are co-financed with 95%. But all the information will be published in the participant portal on the 11th of May. Then is when we will publish the call. And next slide, please. So today we have only 1 hour to give you an overview to open the appetite for you, because we will have a specific, once the call is published on on the 11th of June, we will have a specific full day dedicated to LifeSet. This will, in this specific LifeSet info day, you will be able to get more information on each of the specific 13 topics that are open for funding in the call 2023. So we will keep you informed, keep you posted, and have a look at the CNEA's website for further information. Or next slide. Or here you have different tools and instruments that we use to promote the program. So please join the live newsletter, and we will be able to also the Clean Energy newsletter. We will be able to inform you about the info day through that. And that's all from my side. So that we have a lot of time for questions. Sorry about the rushing at the
Thank you very much, Maria. And I think I would invite now my colleagues Pierluca and Zoe to join the visuals. Yes, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, we should be seeing the Slido questions. Wonderful, good. So give us just a moment to organize a bit our thoughts, because we see them basically, we discover them just as yourself. Let's maybe take the second question on equipment and infrastructure cost, and the funding rate in one go. And I would ask my colleague Zoe to respond while we look at the other questions in the meantime. Zoe.
Yes, okay, well, thank you very much for the question. As you have heard in the presentation from Annette and Maria, LifeSet, Life Clean Energy Transition, is a program looking at mainly breaking market barriers, improving capacity, skills, mobilizing investment, and looking at the uptake and implementation of EU legislation. And so we like to say that we are funding brains and not really bricks. So it's not a program to fund infrastructure costs. These are not eligible under LifeSet. And as far as the equipment costs are concerned, these would be eligible in very exceptional cases and for a minimum amount. So only when it's really justified by the proposed action. So I hope this answers the question. So in case you're really looking into building a PV plant, LifeSet is not the program to come for. And the funding rate, I think Maria mentioned it in one of our very last slides. The funding rate under LifeSet is different than for the other life sub-programs. It's 95%.
Thank you very much, Zoe. Then I suggest that we move on with the letters of support question, which Maria, you might want to answer this, and maybe together with the one on community development, because that relates to your area of work. Huh?
Yes, well, I mean, on the one on community development, if it's possible to submit a proposal in life for co-financing and energy community development. No, again, it's like what Zoe was saying before. We are not financing directly the PV installation or the one community idea that you have in mind. You have to look into the topic and see what is expected from the topic. We are aiming at doing a change in the market. So we are helping to break the market barriers that don't allow communities to be taken out of the ground, but we don't finance one specific energy community project. On the letters of support, yes, so they are not compulsory, the letters of support, but indeed they are valuable in a sense that they can make the case or make stronger the case for the idea the proponents are putting forward in terms of what are the main stakeholders or market needs. So of course, letters of support, they have to be tailored to the specific proposal. If they are generic, they don't provide any value, but if they are specific and from key stakeholders that are backing up the idea because there is a need in the market, they are valuable to make stronger the case, to make more relevant your proposal when it's assessed.
Thank you, Maria. And I suggest that we take the last 3 questions because we are actually already running against the closure of the session, but we'll have time just for 3 specific short questions. I will take the one on the cities mission and the consortia, and while I would then plan to pass over to Pierluca to explain a bit the overall life funding, the question on if there is 100 million per year in the grant budget, what is the usage of the remaining budget of life set? So is there any topic with a specific reference to supporting the city's mission? Yes. For those of you who recall the topic, which is set out the work for the cities and regions. So basically with the keyword local, if you're looking at the call document once it's published, here there is work which is of course in complementarity and in good collaboration with our colleagues who are managing the city's mission, but also in terms of the ambition which is set out here. And you will find referencing in which way the activities which we are funding through this funding line are expected, invited to create a collaboration and having a reference move, strategic reference, and move over from and to the city objectives, the mission's objectives. Now, regarding the international consortia, that is a quick question to be answered, which I quickly take myself. So here, yes, for the majority of the life set funding topics, you would please keep in mind that you will need a minimum of 3 entities which are located in 3 different eligible countries. Now, the reality is that actually most of the actors find it beneficial to work with more than 3. So there is, depending on the topic and depending on the markets, you would find consortia between 6, 8, 10, 12, 15 partners. Now, just a word, it is not really quite working in this way that the more the better. It's basically whatever is best fitted to the very objective, to your endeavor, to your initiative, you would please use this requirement for an international consortia to the best of the ability and to the best of the performance of your project and how it fits best. There are exceptions from this, which you will discover in the call document. And if in case there is an exception, it means it will go to one country, basically. It will be very clearly spelled out in the call document for which this exception is valid. Now, Pierluca, for the question on the usage of the life funding. And I think after that, despite the very interesting questions, which we will then answer in a different form, we'll be close just for you to know that this will be the last question that we can take this morning.
Thank you. Thank you, Annette. Yes, regarding the question of the overall budget, if I'm not wrong, the total budget for the 7-year period is 997 million, so close to 1 billion. Ideally, the budget is allocated for the vast majority, of course, to the action grants, so to the grant component that is that we have presented today under Life Clean Energy Transition, but also then to the procurement actions which can serve or specific initiatives, for instance, the one that were presented as well by Maria with regard to the concerted actions, but also with regard to the Defense Forum, so a number of initiatives that are better financed via procurement, and also for activity of with regard to policy development, so policy making and the different studies that are needed to advance in the clean energy transition agenda. I hope this reply generally to the question on the budget.
Thank you, Pierluca. With this, we will close the session. For me, just 4 small comments to make before we close. First of all, thank you very much for following us and thank you for your attention. Thanks very much to the colleagues, speaker colleagues, and also to our colleagues kindly working in the back office in order to make the session work, but also to make the Slido work. We would invite you, join us on the 1st of June to the dedicated Info Day, where actually over a full day, we will present each single one of these topics with a separate session, with examples, with project coordinators who speak from their experience, and where you will get all of the details in order to see whether you would be happy and successful in joining the Life Clean Energy Transition community. And the last thing is that I will pass now the floor to our colleague Julia, our master moderator, who will still collaborate with you on a small survey before you will have a small deserved coffee break. Thank you very much again from our side, and over to you, Julia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Annette, and thank you very much to all speakers and participants of your session. It was really a lot of details that you managed to give in such a short time, and a lot of replies. I'm sure that there are also still unanswered questions, so we will try to go back to them as much as possible, but keep on Slido, hashtag EULive23, and use it to tell us how useful this clean energy transition session was for you. We really value your feedback. We take it into account. And now it will be there during the coffee break. So I invite you to get a coffee, stretch your legs, grab the chance to perhaps to listen to a very interesting episode of the live podcast. You will also see that in the next slides coming. And yes, take a break before we welcome the Circular Economy and Quality of Life team after the break. Thank you very much.